Hey y'all, welcome back to the HackShack. Today we've got another box from the folks at Hackerboxes, but this is not a normal monthly subscription box. This is a special box. This is the Fox Hunt box. Let's get this on the bench, see what we have here, and then we'll get into a little bit more about what exactly fox hunting is all about. First up, we have the TTGO T-Display ESP32 controller. This little powerhouse will be the brains and the display for the project. Pretty slick. Next, we've got the exclusive Hackerbox Fox Hunt PCB. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this comes together and how well it performs in action. Here's the telescoping UHF-VHF SMA female antenna. It's labeled as an Nagoya branded NA773. Following that, we've got a standard TRS 3.5mm audio jack and an SMA male PCB edge launch antenna connector. Then we have 3 momentary tactile buttons. Nothing fancy, but they'll definitely play a key role in controlling the setup. This right here is the low pass filter, specifically the LFCN-180 I'm really curious to see if this lives up to its name. Testing its effectiveness is going to be fun. Up next is the SA818-V radio transceiver module. When you order the Hackerbox, you can choose either the UHF or VHF one. As you can see, I went with VHF. This module is a self-contained transceiver, which makes it super easy to integrate into your project. Oh, and I almost forgot, this kit also includes these header pins and the battery pigtail to pair up with the TTGO board. And finally, we've got the exclusive Radio Hacker holographic sticker, because let's be honest, what's a cool project without an equally cool sticker? Before we move on, I'd like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, PCBWay. Did you know you can get custom PCBs made starting at only $5? And in addition to their PCB prototype service, they also offer PCB assembly, CNC machining, 3D printing, sheet metal fabrication, and injection molding services. Check the link in the description for more details. And again, we thank PCBWay for sponsoring this video. Let's dive into the fascinating world of ham radio fox hunting, also known as transmitter hunting. The concept is simple. Someone hides a transmitter, the fox, and participants use directional antennas and signal finding techniques to locate it. These hunts can happen anywhere from parks to urban environments, making it a versatile challenge. For a more intense twist, there's ARDF, or amateur radio direction finding. This combines running and orienteering with the hunt, testing both your technical and physical skills. It's like a tech-savvy scavenger hunt with a cardio boost. But what's the point, aside from the fun? Fox hunting holds valuable technical skills like signal analysis, antenna tuning, and interference troubleshooting. In real-world scenarios, these abilities are used for locating downed aircraft or even rogue transmitters causing interference. So it's just not a hobby, it's a skill with real-life applications. So as you've probably figured out by now, we're going to be making a Fox transmitter. Are you new to Hackerboxes? Each kit comes with a dedicated step-by-step guide available on Instructables. Whether you're working on a special edition like this Fox Hunt kit or a regular monthly subscription box, you'll find everything you need from assembly instructions to helpful tips. Plus, the Instructable pages often include super helpful comments from other builders. They share solutions for snags they've run into or tweaks that might be needed to get things working just right. It's like having a community workshop right at your fingertips. I'll be following along with this Instructable as we put this together. Okay, first the Instructable tells us to power up the display with a USB-C cable. And it says the factory program firmware should display a graphics demo. And we see that here, so that is a good basic first health check. Next, we're going to get into the Arduino IDE. If you don't have that, you need to install it. And in the IDE, we're going to use the board manager, and we're going to search for ESP32. And you'll see here, I already have that installed. And if you didn't have installed, it would appear as having that install button there. So you could just hit that and get going. And next, we're told to go up under the tools menu and select board as ESP32 dev module. And then we have several of these settings here we're told to make sure we match up with. Pay attention to that recommended upload speed. I think that's a pretty good suggestion. They say sometimes you have trouble if you go faster than that. Next, we're told to go to Tools, Library Manager, and to search for TFT_ESPI. And when I do that, we're supposed to be looking for the library from Bodmer. And you can see I already have that installed. If you didn't, you'd see a button there to install it. Pretty easy and straightforward. Next, we're told to find the folder where the libraries are installed and to find this folder for TFT ESPI. We're going to open up the user_setup_select.h in a text editor. We're going to comment out the line that says user setup.h. And we're going to look for the one, and we're going to uncomment the line that has the setup25 TTGo tdisplay.h, and then we're going to save and get out of that file. Next, we load up file example TFT_ESPI testing diagnostics and color test. We compile and push that to the ESP32. If it looks like this is running okay, it means we've got everything set up as expected so far, and we're good to move on to the next steps. So in the previous Hackerbox that was called 2 meter, we also used this same module. I saw the same reference that said, shall we play a game? And it referenced this TTGoAlienAttack. And I didn't mess with it then, but I decided I was going to mess with it this time. So I went and got that, followed the link, opened that up, and when I tried to compile it, I got these errors. So the first error you see here is in reference to one of these files here having some weird characters in it. So you need to fix that by opening it up in something else or whatever method you want to. You'll see what those look like and you can get those out of there. And after getting rid of those messages, it still wouldn't compile. And so I was focusing on these LED messages. And I'll save you some time and trouble. This is 100% related to these changes in the Espressif ESP32 module that Arduino uses. You can see here beginning with version 3 of the Espressif libraries for the boards in Arduino. They removed some APIs, added some new ones, and renamed others. So if you've got older code that doesn't reflect these changes, you're going to have to make those changes to the code, or you're going to need to back your board library down to 2x. And pay attention, this will definitely come up later. But after messing around a little bit with this and trying to see if I could make it work, I ended up just rolling back to version 2 and pushing it, and it was fine. And it's a cool little game. These graphics that this person was able to get to show up on this little display look pretty cool. Alright, so now it's time to start soldering. The first thing we're going to do is this low pass filter, and like I usually do with surface mount stuff, I'll preload one pad with some solder, and I'm going to use the tweezers here to hold it in place while I do that first side. Then I'm going to go around and do the other side, and then you'll see here I'm going to catch the two sides that go to ground there. Instructable says the convention is to have the red marking closest to the transceiver side, so that's the way we oriented it, as you can see here in this close-up. And next it was time for the VHF module, and you can see how it fits like this, and it's got castellated pads, so they're a little different to solder, but they're not too bad. I used a little bit of blue tack here to kind of hold it in place. I get that kind of positioned up, and I kind of solder some opposite ends first, and then I just take off and do the rest. There's a good castellated pad how-to referenced in the Instructable from SparkFun. Next I added that TRS jack, kind of the same technique, but some of it was off the screen, sorry about that. Next I added the SMA antenna connector, and since it's kind of a big chunk of metal, you'll notice I added a little bit of flux there. And you'll see it's got 2 legs on one side and 3 on the other, so you can kind of determine which way you need to orient it when you solder it on. And it's not too bad. See, I got out of order here a little bit because I did these buttons after the antenna connector instead of before, but I don't think it matters that much. Same technique, I just kind of loaded up one side and then put all those in and then came back around and did the other side. Next up we have the display board here, and you can see the Instructable tells us that we need to trim a little bit of plastic off of this particular part of the header so it'll clear one of the components on the board. So I took a little bit of a razor knife there and trimmed that back, and had to go back and forth a few times, but finally got it where it cleared and seated properly. Next up, I put the display on the board and paid special attention to the note from the Instructable that said oriented so the USB-C port goes over the edge of the board, and to make sure that the display was on the same side of the board as the switches, not the same side as the skull. I put a little USB stick or something under the edge to get started, and just then soldered all these pins from the top side first, and then you'll see I'll flip it over and catch it from the bottom. After all that soldering, I gave it a quick test by plugging it in, and you can see it seems to work okay. It still had the ARRL code on it. That's basically just to make sure nothing was shorting out. Then I did a little cleanup with some IPA. Next, I updated my ESP32 stuff back to 3.05. After that, I went back to the Instructable, and I got the 2 meter demo sketch, and then I pushed it to the board. Now, this demo code technically will transmit on one of the frequencies if you use the button that's assigned to push to talk. If you're not licensed, you don't need to be transmitting on the 2 meter band. And that's all I'll say about that. I'm not trying to preach to you, but those are the rules. So as you can see here, got the code on there. I'm putting the antenna on there, and I'm going to plug my headphones into the line out and flip around some of these weather channels. And here in the basement, just like last time, I couldn't pick anything up. But what I did was I went upstairs to the dining room and plopped this down with a little battery, and you can hear here in just a second that I was able to tune in one of the weather channels. So that good test to prove things were working.
A 40% chance of showers. Lows in the mid-40s. Thursday, mostly sunny. A slight chance of showers in the morning. Highs around 60. Chance of rain 20%.
With that done, I went and grabbed our code for the main event, the Fox sketch and the Morse melody sketch here. And you can see right away I go in here and I'm trying to edit out the part that plays the melody. If you check my previous video that used this same code, technically it plays something that might be considered by some to be non-approved for a Fox. I'm not sure exactly what the rules are. I'm sure some studious individual may inform us in the comments. What I've heard from other folks, it sounds like various tones that can go up and down. And what defines a song? Does it have to be recognized? Who does it have to be recognized by? I don't particularly care. I'm just not going to show playing anything. I'm just going to have it send my call sign and the word Fox. So just chill the heck out, folks. Now, did you see what happened there during my ramble? I had pushed the code to it, but look at our error here. Now remember, back when I said this would come up later, and before we started this phase, I had upgraded my board version stuff in Arduino back to the 3 code. And we've got the same LED related errors because of the API changes between 2 and 3. One helpful Instructable Hackerbox customer/user had this very helpful comment down there, and they pointed to some code where they had made some edits. So I just grabbed that, and you can see where they commented it out above what they replaced it with. And that pushed without any problems. We can see if the Hackerbox folks think this is enough of a thing to maybe mention in the Instructable or change in the example code, if we assume most folks might get the latest Arduino and have all their stuff updated to the latest as far as the board libraries go. With this tweak code pushed to the radio, I used my HT and gave it a quick listen on the Fox frequency. Seems like it's working. Now here's something you may find kind of humorous. I use a Logitech wireless keyboard on my bench, just like this one that you see here. And I thought I was getting hacked or my computer was possessed for a minute there. I had all kind of crazy stuff happening. Of course, after a few seconds, I realized it was the RF from that radio that was constantly doing Fox mode on the bench that was getting into the keyboard. It wasn't getting into or interfering with the actual protocol that the keyboard uses to the PC. It was just getting into the keyboard and making it send crazy stuff. Then I remembered looking around at Cold Brew's code that he had for his Fox, because that's what this code was based off of. His uses a little bit different board, and it's not the same exact thing here, but the idea is the same. I had remembered reading where he said if you hold down B while you plug it in, that'll put his in bootloader mode, and that'll keep it from transmitting. And you can do stuff like charge it when it's in that mode, or push new firmware to it without it sitting there blasting out. Doing something like that is exactly what I was wanting to do. So you can see here where I went in and edited and tried to change the main loop to have a section if the button B was pressed down, it would kind of just skip everything else and just loop around and say transmitter disabled. I also realized that a lot of this code was using narrow mode for the FM instead of typical wide that's used with most analog amateur radio, so I changed that value here. So I pushed that code to it, and you can see I'm going to plug it in here. I'm going to hold down B while I plug it in, and I probably maybe could have put the code in a different place to keep it from even proceeding this far, but it's just basically going to go through its normal boot up, but before it starts doing the transmit part, it's going to stop and just loop around. And you'll see that it's kind of blinking the screen because I'm having it print that each time it loops, which is really unnecessary. So then what you'll see, I'll go in here and modify how that loops around a little bit. I'm going to have it do the printing part right when it enters there, but then the loop forever part is just going to be empty, so it doesn't sit there and flicker the screen. I also played around with having a kind of a large timer in there, so possibly could do something and refresh it, but it would be on a pretty long delay. Thinking about if I had a way to look at battery charge status or that kind of thing, because a quick reminder, this one does have a chip on it that will handle the charging of a LiPo cell. There are some fun examples out there for showing charge status. I'm going to possibly try to mess around with that. I've already gotten this little LiPo cell here from Amazon, and it will power it okay. I'm just not sure for how long. I'm going to have to clip these leads off, and I'm going to solder on the leads that came with this Hackerbox, so it'll be the right connector for the underside of the board. And you can see here, either one of these ways, when you plug it up now, it results in a screen that's not flickering like crazy because it's not drawing it every time it loops. All right, now we're at the part where I want to see if that low pass filter makes a difference. Now let me say up front, I don't have a spectrum analyzer, not even one of those fun little tiny essays. But hey, if you have one collecting dust and feel generous, hit me up. This is not, I repeat, not meant to be a lab level RF engineering test.
You can see the analyzer has identified 4 spurs. This saves you from having to hunt for each spur manually.
There are going to be variables here, like my body being in the way, these being different boards, and other factors I can't control. So if you're tempted to jump in the comments to RF-splain all the ways this test isn't perfect, I suggest hitting rewind and listening to this again. My goal here is simple. I'm doing an A-B comparison. I'm going to load the same exact sketch onto the new Fox and on the older 2-meter board from the previous Hackerbox. The key difference is that the old board doesn't have a low pass filter, and the new one does. That's it. For the test, I'll connect each board alternately to a dummy load and measure their signal levels using my RTL SDR V4 on a laptop about 20 feet away. I'll specifically look at the signal on 146.565 MHz and its harmonic frequencies. If you're unfamiliar with harmonics, I'll link a quick primer in the description. The TLDR is that we want harmonics to be much lower in level than the fundamental frequency. Again, this is not a professional setup. I am not making any claims about whether this Fox transmitter meets FCC spurious emission standards. This is purely a side-by-side look to see if the low-pass filter makes a noticeable difference in reducing harmonic levels. That's all. If you still feel the urge to nitpick the methodology or want to engage in RF comment warfare, well, just know I have my delete button warmed up and ready. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we are on the fundamental on the kit without the filter, and we are getting about 46 or so peak on the receive signal. And here we are on the fundamental with the kit with the filter, and I'm not sure if it was a fluke or something or what. Like I said, this is not a scientifically set up thing, but the peak was 28 on the fundamental. I thought it should be a little bit closer to the other one on the main frequency, but it was lower. Okay, on the second harmonic, the kit without the filter had a peak of about 47 on the receive signal. On the second harmonic with the kit that had the filter, we had a peak of about 32 on the receive signal, so that was a bit lower than the other without the filter. Okay, third harmonic without the filter, got a peak of about 47 again. The third harmonic with the filter has a peak of about 31, a bit lower than the other. Fourth harmonic without the filter, peak of 28. Okay, on the fourth harmonic with the filter, we are way down and we only have a peak of about 8 now. The fifth harmonic without a filter had a peak of about 11. The fifth harmonic with the filter had a peak of 4, but that's basically the noise floor. There was no signal perceived. So pretty much with this setup, it was no longer present. Again, there may be some funky spurs here and there. I am not looking for those, and I can't really see those easily with the width I've got set up here. Now, even though this setup didn't give us any scientifically accurate numbers like using a proper setup with a spectrum analyzer would, I think we've seen it demonstrated that the filter did make a difference, and I'm okay with that. Since this box has been all about RF and ham radio, I'm going to do a little something different for this video's giveaway. So I'm giving away my 2022 copy of the ARRL Handbook. This isn't just any book, it's one of the best resources out there for anyone interested in RF and amateur radio. It's packed with decades of knowledge on topics like antenna theory, radio technology, and even modern digital modes. The fundamentals of RF don't change, so even older editions like this one, or even older ones, are incredibly valuable. Whether you're new to the hobby or already immersed, having an ARRL handbook on your shelf is like having a trusted mentor you can refer to anytime. Now, while my giveaway doesn't directly support the ARRL, if you'd prefer a brand new edition of the handbook, I'd highly recommend checking out one from ARRL directly. I'll include a link in the description so you can support the organization and maybe treat yourself to the latest edition. To enter for a chance to win my 2022 handbook, just leave a comment on this video. I'll pick a recipient at random on November 30th, 2024 and announce the winner in the comments. However, due to shipping constraints, the recipient will need to have a US mailing address. If the selected winner doesn't, I'll have to choose another commenter. Also, I'll be shipping it via media mail to save on cost. It'll take its time, but it'll get there eventually. If you're not already an ARRL member, there's another great incentive to join. Use the code JHS1 while signing up or renewing your membership, and you'll get a free ARRL t-shirt. It's a great way to support the organization that keeps amateur radio alive and well while picking up some cool gear. One of the ARRL's most impactful initiatives is the Teachers Institute on Wireless Technology, a program designed to help educators bring wireless tech and radio concepts into their classrooms. It's an incredible way to engage young people in STEM and amateur radio, giving them hands-on exposure to real-world technology. Programs like this just don't benefit students, they benefit the entire amateur radio community by inspiring the next generation of hams. This initiative relies heavily on donations to keep going, and that's where we can all help. On November 30th, Steve Goodgame and Josh from Ham Radio Crash Course and others will be hosting a telethon on Josh's YouTube channel to raise funds for the Teachers Institute. It's a great opportunity to give back and support the future of amateur radio. Check the links in the description to learn more about the Teachers Institute, grab a new ARRL handbook, or donate directly to this important cause. If you're new to ham radio, let me be the first to say welcome. We want you here. Amateur radio is a fantastic hobby with so many niches and facets to explore, whether you're into building your own gear, experimenting with digital modes, or just chatting with fellow hams worldwide. There's truly something for everyone. Now I know sometimes new folks can have a negative interaction or two. It happens in any community, but I firmly believe that the good far outnumber the sour apples. Most of us are excited to help you learn, share experiences, and grow in the hobby. So don't let one bad experience discourage you. You belong here. Someone who exemplifies this welcoming attitude is Josh Nass, KI6NAZ, whom I've already mentioned in this video. Josh runs an amazing YouTube channel, Ham Radio Crash Course, which has something for everyone, from total beginners to seasoned operators. He also runs a fantastic Discord community where you can find help, make connections, and dive deeper into the hobby. There are so many other great YouTubers and resources in the amateur radio space that I love, but since this video is already getting long, I'll keep it short and encourage you to check out the links in the description. I've listed a ton of excellent channels, communities, and guides to help you along your journey. Amateur radio has something for everyone, and we can't wait to see what you bring to the table. This has been a super fun kit to play with. I would be surprised if you could find something that's better for this price that gives you as customizable options for a Fox. I love the new scaled down PCB, and I've got some ideas for things to use as low cost enclosures. And I'm looking forward to actually getting outside and trying to use it. And I want to give it a shot with this little PCB loop that I purchased just to see if it's worth a hoot. Don't forget to check out all the other boxes that Hackerbox has available to purchase, and maybe even consider giving the subscription a go. It's really fun to get a nice little surprise every month in the mailbox. Hey, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Hope to see you again next time. Take care. Bye-bye.